Hello and welcome to a special edition of Power Talk coming to you from Davos. And it's such a pleasure to have with us the co-chair at Davos, Vijay Shekhar Sharma. You know, Power Talk normally has breakfast and lunch and food. I'm afraid we have none of that here for you.
Thank you for having me here.
But we have the Swiss mountain air.
I was going to say that this is the best thing I can have coming from Delhi. The best air in the world, probably.
So this will have to do for nutrition for you.
Thank you.
Vijay Shekhar, it's great to have you here. Now, it's interesting. This is your first time at Davos and you're the co-chair, which is a big responsibility. And also, I might add, a big honor.
Yeah.
So what exactly does being co-chair entail?
I think, first of all, like you said, this is first time in Davos and first time being a co-chair, both of them together being a tremendous amount of acknowledgement and honor out there. So I think I personally like the agenda that WEF is driving of fourth industrial revolution and startups and a lot of sustainability, and that is the reason that I chose to become part of it, and that is the driving these elements in India is why my personal passion is.
You know, the interesting thing, now I've been coming to Davos, I don't know how many years, more years than I care to remember, and one thing which always strikes me is that the mood keeps switching and the mood keeps shifting, and sometimes, especially we look at it from an Indian point of view.
Yes.
And it's seeming to me that this year China seems to have come back a little bit as the flavor of the season. India gone down a little bit. And that's partly, I guess, because China has also overtaken India again in growth rates thanks to demonetization and the rest of it. What have you been picking up?
I think there is no doubt about it that India has its own opportunity, and India, I personally would not want to benchmark India against China, but because we are the growing economies and we are supposed to be looking at each other's number, I believe India has a great opportunity for growth forward. Demonetization gave way for digitization, gave way for banks to get more money in the banks. So it's in a way a long shot that we are expecting where India will definitely go back to and even cross China. I'm very hopeful of that.
Yeah, well, I know why you wouldn't be entirely unhappy with demonetization, Vijay. We all know why you would be quite happy with demonetization. But there are questions around it, of course, which I'm again going to come to. But sticking with China for a minute, too, the fact that Xi himself came out here and spoke at Davos, in a sense, it's a signal. You know, a long time he spoke for a long time, you know, and it was really engaging at the highest level. Do you think that's signaling that China is upping its game a little bit when it comes to being a player on the global stage?
I think there is no doubt about it. Chinese companies have a problem at a global stage. Across the world, they are not necessarily welcomed all the places. At the same point of time, so many places, they are also Chinese people do not speak English and the language of the world. So Xi is probably bringing Chinese companies to learn that how about going out of the China as economy and building global companies and out there. And there's no doubt about it that China, which has been traditionally been a country where copies of the world have been built, whether you talk about software application or whether you talk about a car, more or less there is a lot of inspiration from the rest of the world that lends there. But for the first time I've seen in the last couple of years, China is producing world originals. I mean, the smartphones that are coming out of China, the software application, mobile apps and business models coming out of China, they are fantabulously global in this sense.
Okay, we can get you some hot chocolate. Anju's here, so I don't know about the rest of the food, but there is hot chocolate. Thank you, Anju, for that. So we can take this and carry on.
Thank you.
You know, talking about China, it's also at Davos, it's almost interesting that you don't actually have anybody senior coming in from the Indian delegation.
I think India's firepower beyond ministers is definitely here, and I think a number of Indian businessmen and global companies are there. That would be the largest contingent any which ways, I assume, here, because Indian companies are truly global in their approach and their customer base and their global go-to market. So even though you're right, as a political or a state agenda, we might not be represented in that equally level, but at the same point of time, I believe that India is a country which is represented in much more diversity here and a scale.
India is more naturally globalized, perhaps, than some of the other countries. China is also globalized, but China has a language problem.
Yes, China's language
problem. The Indian business elite fit in very well at Davos, and they've been here at Davos for years, and they speak the language, they're very comfortable. For China, it's a bit more.
Yeah, I think in China people do not speak English, even in the top leadership or business leadership or let's say entrepreneurs. Xiaomi founder Li Jun, you cannot talk to him in English. they need interpreter, translators, and so many times even those who speak English, they do not speak so fluently and so on. So China, I think, has a sort of a global disadvantaged position in front of India. I personally believe that if Indians together wake up and, like we talked about, fourth revolution, industrial revolution there, India has a greater opportunity in the world than China has.
Right. Now, you've of course worked very closely with Chinese companies, Alibaba, naturally, the investors there. How has that entire experience been? And I'm sure there are lots of people in India who'd want to learn from that, because sometimes we say India and China shouldn't compete or fight, they can partner. Now, you're an example of somebody who's doing that. What's their experience been?
I think, first of all, I fundamentally believe that Chinese companies, there are two kinds of Chinese companies, one that are global in their nature. So Alibaba is a New York listed company, and we are having an investment from them in our company Paytm. And at the same point of time, lately what we have done is that we've created a business movement of the Indian domicile entity called Paytm Payment Bank. So our payment wallet business, which is very popular in India, is now moved to an Indian domiciled company, and this business has been transformed. And I want to tell you here, as a Chinese people, they understood why am I doing it. They understood why we are trying to do it. And I think
so. Why are you trying to do it? Is it partly because you're concerned, as many people are concerned, and they've been talking about this, with a company like Paytm having investment by the Chinese, Indian payments, which are already gone from cash to digital, or the government wants to move it to digital, Indian currency or Indian money is going to go into Chinese hands or Chinese control. That's a charge that has been made.
Yeah, that's right. So first of all, let's just understand it. There is no way on earth they have any control whatsoever of any part of business in our company. They're purely a shareholder, investor, the money and the learning that we get. They don't get our data, they don't get our board majority, they don't get our any element. So first of all, even in the Paytm parent, this is a very financial investment centric approach that we've taken. They're a great partner in that sense, but beyond that, there is no other thing that from the sovereign of India is going anywhere. And I'm very proud, staunch Indian in that sense, that at a very early start, even before that investment happened, we had applied for Paytm Payment Bank license, and that license obligated us that if we become a payment bank, then we will have to move our wallet business into that entity. And this is a pre-investment discussion. And with all the team out there, we had a very clear understanding that, look, we want to be payment bank and we want to be an Indian domicile company in long term.
All right, now coming to all of this change that is taking place in payments, and obviously must have been a really exciting couple of months for you. Now, from the country's point of view, here at Davos, IMF has just come out and said India is no longer the fastest growing large economy. It's fallen back behind China. And that's because of demonetization. Has it hurt the country?
I firmly believe demonetization, even though it has its own pain and a lot of concerns, and let's just understand, there are a lot of things that could have done better. But I truly believe that it is nothing but a step back before a large jump. And those jumps will be seen not only in different aspects of businesses and economy, but also in a social life out there. The removal of cash, which is somewhere in the business model of removal of old notes included as an element because we became more digital, will allow poorer and other people who are not on the are on the fringes of financial inclusion will also come back. So in a way, one act gave a push to another very important act of financial inclusion in the country.
Right. Well, people will of course say, and the cynics will say, obviously Vijay Shekhar Sharma aur kya kahega? Because now people are saying paise do ki jagah they are saying Paytm karo. So this has worked very well for you, let's face it.
Dekhe, a company which has been built in 2001, a Paytm business which was built in 2011, 2011 से Paytm का business चल रहा है. पॉलिटिकल कलर देना तो मुझे लगता है पॉलिटिक्स की ऑब्लिगेशन लगती है मुझे. उसमें कोई सच नहीं है, कोई करेक्टनेस नहीं है, और मैं सिर्फ इतना ही कहूंगा कि वो पॉलिटिकल ऑब्लिगेशन ज्यादा है देन ट्रूथ. लेट्स जस्ट रिमेंबर इट वाज ओपन फॉर एवरीबॉडी प्लेग्राउंड, and you can understand how many financial institutions felt bad about it, that they tried competing in a not so correct upfront manner out there.
All right, but looking at how soon it will take to make the transition, that's a big question, right? We are saying, okay, let's move from cash to a digital payment system.
Not all.
Today, let's face it, before demonetization was done, you were the largest. You had 170 million wallets or thereabouts out of 200. So you control a very large share of the market, 170 million out of 200. But in terms of transactions, it was barely 20% of the total transactions were taking place digitally.
Yeah.
1 year from now, after demonetization, the estimates we are hearing is it will still only be 30%. So 70% will still be cash.
Yeah, let's just remember it. There are two kind of transactions that we should talk about here. Large type of transactions are more or less digital any which ways. RTGS, NEFT, and those are digital any which ways. We concerned about everyday 10 rupee, 15 rupee, or 50 rupee, or 100 rupees payments that we do on a shop or milk shop or somewhere else. The point is that we, as Paytm and many other digital payment companies and otherwise card companies, built upon an expansion drive of signing up merchants. A small shopkeeper who otherwise never expected to accept digital payments is now accepting digital payments. I get tweets and I get tagged upon the tweets, which is very inspiring. I mean, from a person in Patna to a person in Thrissur in Kerala, it's amazing. What we know is that a movement has started. A movement has started which will definitely not only next year will go 30%, but will continue to go till the time this country majorly. I'm an optimist person here. 5 to 7 years, it'll be comfortable to expect 45 to 50%.
That's not a lot though. I mean, if you're saying that 4 to 5 years from now, 40 to 45% of transactions will be digital.
45 to 50.
45 to 50. So you're saying for 4 to 5 years, cash will still be more than half.
Let's just remember it. I don't think that we are living in an economy as a country or in the world at large where we should think that cash will go away. There is an obligation for cash to continue to be used, and that doesn't mean that cash has an evil at every point. The point is that more number of digital places it is accepted and more number of places digitally being transacted, the better the economy becomes, better the structure becomes, better the social structures come.
Because if you look at countries like Kenya, which are, India is perhaps more developed than Kenya is, more advanced in technology, Kenya's got a higher percentage already that is using M-Pesa.
That's exactly my example would have been if you were to ask me that why am I choosing 45 and 50 is because I want to make sure that we achieve it in 5 years. My personal expectation will be definitely the majority moving in a shorter span. At the same point in time, let's just remember it. If a country moves from cash to a digital economy, there are inherent examples and advantages that happen. But remember, India is taking two-level leap. Kenya's economy is a money transfer economy, not a commerce economy or not a payment in a smartphone, etc. level economy. It was running on a very small money transfer business model, which is incredibly scaled out well. In India, we are concerned about a lot of people going digital native first itself. And then those people taking a leap in financial services at a digital level. So there are two jumps that we are expecting country to take in one jump. I want to tell you in last 2 months what happened in this country is totally inspiring. And there is a best way to explain this is that it is said that it takes India to move, when it moves, it just moves very strongly and fast.
When it starts to move, it moves really fast.
And that happened in the country. We were talking about poor fellows who have not used smartphone, internet, computers, to use computing devices, to use the payment. I mean, there were two leaps in one go. And that happened in this country.